All right, so this is my son's 2015 Jetta, and what we're going to do today is very simple. We're just going to change the oil and the filter. We'll double check the air filter, of course, see if everything is okay, but I assume it is. So just very simple maintenance that we're going to do, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So these are the tools that we're going to use. We're going to use an oil filter extractor, because what happens a lot of times, they over tighten the filter, so you're likely to need one of these. This is an 8mm Allen wrench. This is a T20 Torx bit. This is for the drain plug. This is for the front plastic cover so we can access the oil filter. And I'm also going to rotate the tires. So I'm going to be using my impact wrench, electric impact wrench, quarter cable. It's a really good one. Basically all you need for DIY, and a 17mm impact wrench socket. So this is for the wheels. So I'm going to be rotating the wheels, as I've mentioned, and just an electric, screwdriver, so I can more easily get the cover off. So as far as the oil goes, I'm going to use a 5W30 synthetic oil. I like the Castrol Magnatech. It's a little bit better for cold starts. And we're going to use a Fram filter, but this is like the premium Fram filter. So we got the more expensive one, so it's not as cheap. It's the ultra synthetic. It's a nice filter. This is what we're going to use.
So what we're also going to do, we're going to check the air filter, just make sure it's in good condition. The air filter is one of those components that affect miles per gallon, so you always want to make sure that it's in good condition. Otherwise, your fuel to air ratio will probably be too rich and you're going to be consuming more gas than you need. So in this case, our filter is good, so we're just going to put it back. And now that you're at it, you also want to check that you don't have a lot of leaves, debris in the housing, in the filter housing. And since we don't, we're just going to assemble it back and go to the oil change. And now that we have the compressor running anyway, we're going to blow some sand off of the engine just because we can and because it's fun. Now we need to jack up the car, put the car on the jack stands. Um, just one tip, make sure that you put both sides with the jack stands at the same height. You don't want the car to be tilted to one side or another. Now you want to get the plastic cover off, and this is where you're going to need the T20 Torx bit, and you basically have 4 on each side. I'm only going to do 4 here and pull it out so you can see. Now that you got the screws out, you just pull the cover towards you and then just put it aside, and there's the oil filter. That's what we need to access. So make sure you remove the oil cap before you unscrew the drain plug. If you don't remove the oil cap, it's going to create vacuum and not all oil is going to come down to the oil pan. As you can see, my son was having a little bit of difficulty with the oil cap, but it just needs a little bit of wiggle. It's not strained, so you just wiggle a little bit and pull it out. With the oil cap out of the way, you're going to take the 8mm Allen wrench and you're going to unscrew the drain plug. Of course, you got to have your oil pan or whatever you want to use to catch the oil underneath. And you just unscrew and the oil is going to come out nicely. And you can collect the oil and, of course, take it to your local shop or Walmart to have it recycled. Just let it sit there for maybe 5-10 minutes. So after all the oil has drained, you're going to come back with the oil plug. Make sure you have a new crush washer and you're going to tighten it. Now, I don't use a torque wrench for this because I do so many oil changes. My rule of thumb is once it's snug, I do 1/8 of a turn. But if you must know the right torque spec for this oil plug, it's 22 foot-pounds of torque. Now let's remove the old filter, and I'm using the extractor. As you can see, this one was over tightened. When I put the new filter in, I'm just going to hand tighten. You don't need to use an extractor, and it should be used to tighten the new filter. And when it comes out, also make sure that the rubber sealant of the old filter came out with the filter and it's not sitting on the engine. So make sure, and also get some of the oil and lubricate the rubber sealant of the new filter. I'm going to do that now. And another best practice I do, I pre-fill the new filter with some oil, so that way when I start the car cold, it's not completely empty. Now let's go in with a new filter. Just, thread it nicely, easily. Don't put a lot of force until it's gone in the thread, so you don't cross thread it. And as I've mentioned before, just hand tighten it. Make sure it's snug and very tight with your hands, so you don't need any tool for this. Now we pour the oil, and for this car, this is a 2.0 naturally aspirated car with I think 150, 120 horsepower, and it takes 3.8 quarts of oil. So make sure you measure the oil. Don't put too much oil. Put it gradually. Measure it through the dipstick. Putting too much oil in the engine can really mess up the engine. Now you go in with the plastic cover, so same process to get it out, but inverse. And you just screw back the 8 screws, and then you're going to be ready to, jack up the car, remove the jack stands, lower the car, and put it leveled, and then we're going to measure the oil. Just make sure that the car is leveled and it ran for a few seconds before you measure the oil. Now let's measure the oil through the dipstick with the car leveled. We put 3.8 quarts. It should be showing the oil, as you can see, right at the top mark. So we're good. We're done with the oil change. Okay, so now we're going to rotate the tires, and as you can see, I put the car on 4 jack stands, so the car is completely lifted. If you're going to do this, you have to have jack stands that can withstand the weight of the car, and you have to be very careful. Make sure that they're at the same level. It's not tilted toward one side or the other, and that the car isn't bouncing, isn't wiggling. Make sure, guys, it's safe. Otherwise, do one side first and then the other side. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put the back tires in the front and the front tires in the back. That's the way I like to do.
So this is a Porter cable impact wrench. It's an electric wrench. It's rated for 480, 470 pounds. It's more than enough if you're going to do DIY in your home. This is more than enough power. Of course, if you're gonna, if you're a professional mechanic, you're much better off with an air impact tool that's rated for 1,200 pounds. But for DIY stuff at home, this is basically what you're gonna need. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna rotate the tires, and we're gonna pull it off. And this is a 17 millimeter lug nut. And you can see it comes out pretty easy. So let's torque the lug nuts, and the spec is between 90 and 110 foot-pounds of torque, so I've chosen 100, and it's pretty straightforward. When you tighten the lug nuts, make sure you use a crisscross pattern so the wheel adjusts nicely to the hub and it doesn't vibrate when you drive. That's it. I hope this video was helpful, and if you've liked it, consider giving it a thumbs up and also subscribing. Thank you.